Hi class, back again. In this video we're going to be discussing spelling secondary leading tone chords. I don't think there should be really any confusion in this because we know that secondary or a leading tone chord, right? Whether it belongs to a secondary function, whether it belongs to a different scale degree, or it belongs to the tonic, it's still a diminished triad if we're just using a 7th chord or a 7/7 chord. A diminished triad plus a third, either major third or minor third, half diminished major third, minor third, fully diminished 7/7. Okay? So you can think about spelling leading tone chords just as you would as if you were studying them back in Theory 2, Theory 3, right? The procedure for spelling this is bottom of page 274. The procedure for spelling secondary leading tones is not difficult and can be summarized as follows. Find the root of the chord that is to be tonicized, right? So just like we explained in chapter 16, right? If I want to spell a secondary leading tone chord, I've got to start thinking not with fifths, like we talked about, fourths, fourths, G to C, G to C, D to G, D to G, right? I have to start thinking with half steps. Because what is a leading tone? It's a half step away from the tonic, correct? So if you want to tonicize A, whether A minor or A major, go down a half step and build a 7th chord on it. Okay, well that's easy. Okay? I build a half step, I build a 7th chord on G sharp. Great. It's as simple as that, right? Then you have to ask yourself, okay, if I'm in G major, what is A in G major? Well, A is the 2, right? A is the 2. So if I were to write this out, right? Oh, and I left my whiteboard over here, excuse me. If I were to write this out, class, it would look something like this. So, say I want to tonicize an A minor chord. Remember, always assume treble clef with me, guys. Always assume treble clef. Go down a half step. G sharp, B, D. Well, there's my triad, diminished triad. Now I can decide, do I want an F natural for a fully diminished, D to F, minor third, or an F sharp? Depends. Depends. That's actually a trick question. You should have said, no, Darren. Not a half diminished. We're going to a minor chord, A minor. Remember, okay? Refer back to example 17-1. So, what you need to know is when the book says on page 274, find the root of the chord that's to be tonicized, A. So A minor, okay? Go down a minor second, G sharp. Use the same note as the root, spell a diminished triad, G sharp, B, D, of a diminished 7th chord, and then if it needs to be half diminished, full diminished, add another third on that, or the 7th of that chord. Now you've spelled your secondary leading tone chord. Very, very simple when you break it down like that. 3 steps, right? What's the chord you want to tonicize? Go down a half step, build your chord. Okay? It gives you an example on 275, right? To spell a 7 fully diminished 7 of 6 in E flat. Well, ask yourself, what's 6 in E flat? It's C. C minor to be specific. What's a half step down from C? B. It says build a 7 fully diminished 7. Okay, so B, D, F. There's my diminished triad, right? Minor third up from F is A flat. Let's see what it looks like on this. So this is the chord I'm trying to tonicize. C minor. Well, I go down to B, D, F. There we go. There's my diminished triad. Then I know that it has to be a 7 fully diminished 7 of 6. So I add an A flat on there. Right? Feel free to pause these videos at any time, rewind these videos at any time to review the material that we've discussed and go over. And if that fails, remember to text me. Okay, let's go on to this next section, which is recognizing secondary leading tone chords, right? It's kind of a short section, right? If you find an altered chord in a passage that's not a 5/7, right, there's a good chance it will be a secondary leading tone chord. These steps will work in most cases. Let's see what the book says. Is the chord a diminished triad? Well, duh. If it's a major chord, definitely not a diminished chord, not a leading tone chord, right? So it's a diminished chord. There's your first clue, okay? Or a half diminished seventh chord. If not, it's not a secondary leading tone chord. Find the note a minor second above the root. Now this is important. Above the root of the altered chord. Would a major or minor triad built on that note be a diatonic triad in this key? In other words, what they're saying with this little bullet point here in number 3 is, if you come across a chord, and it's a diminished, let's say it is a diminished seventh, right? And say you come across an F sharp diminished chord, right? And the next chord, and you go up a half step, and the next half step from F sharp is G. And you see the next chord is G minor. Look back at your key and find out what G is in that key. Say we're in E flat. G minor is what? The 3. You've just discovered a 7 diminished of 3 in E flat major, right? So that's all you need to know about finding these things, right? So examples or self-test 17-1. It tells you in B flat find a 7 fully diminished 6 of 2. Well, let's do that on our little whiteboard together, right? Probably a good idea to do a couple of these before you tackle the homework, because the answers to the self-test are in the back of the book. So we're in B flat. That's your first piece of information, right? Then it says find the whatever. We don't even know whatever yet. It says 2. What's 2 in B flat? C minor. Some of you might just write a little C minor on your page just to get you in the idea of what we're looking for and what we're basing this chord around. What's a half step down from C? B. And it says a 7 fully diminished. It's not a 7/7, just a 7 diminished triad, right? So C, that's what I'm supposed to go to because of 2. C is 2 in B flat. B flat, next note up is C, 2. So I would spell out B, natural, D, F. There it is. But it tells us to do it in first inversion. So what does that mean? D is on the bottom, isn't it? First inversion. D, F, B. There we go. There's your answer. So really 4 steps, really. What is 2 in B flat? It's C. Go down a half step from C. B. Build a diminished triad on that. There we go. Did it. B, D, F. Is it an inversion? Yep. Put it in the correct inversion. So B's not the root, D's the root because it's first inversion. Done. Finished. Right? As simple as that, guys. As simple as that. Okay? So, stay tuned for the next video. When you feel comfortable to go on, we're going to be looking at secondary leading tone chords in context, and we're going to be doing some listening. Okay? So, till next time, class, take care.